Hey, question I get asked all the time is about nutrition and how to fuel rides. And there's so much literature out there, so many opinions, and a lot of science, and it keeps changing. So I'm gonna share what I do to fuel my daily rides and workouts. And what I do, I've worked out with a nutritionist and following kind of current science and then fine tuning it to me. So what I do is probably not exactly right for you, but if you're not sure what to do, hopefully it kind of gives you some blueprint that you can start with and experiment with. So the first thing is I fuel every single ride that I do, even when my rides are just an hour. I fuel them. If it's like a recovery spin, well, I'm usually going to a coffee shop and buying pastries. But even if for some reason I'm getting on the trainer and just doing a short little hour endurance ride, I still fuel it. And while you may not exactly need to fuel that, I feel like just the habit of I eat on a bike and that I start eating right away really pays off on those race days, especially if I've got race nerves and it's really early in the morning and I'm a little daunted about starting to eat right away. I'm just like, this is my job. This is what I do. So there's that. The most current research is really showing that really fueling with carbs really makes a difference. And the recommendations are generally somewhere between 90 and 120 grams an hour of carbs. So 1 gram of carbs is about 4 calories. So yeah, you start doing the math and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of calories. If you don't really fuel your rides, you definitely don't want to start off with. So 90 calories is a little bit more than 350 calories an hour. So you're going to want to work up to it. Me, when I am doing an endurance ride, especially if it's short, like under 2 hours, I'm probably going to be fueling around that 90 grams of calories an hour. But as my ride starts getting longer, like when I'm doing outdoor rides of like 3, 5, 6 hours, I'm going to shoot for higher up in that number, kind of more approaching 120, knowing that generally by the end, I'm kind of fatigued of eating and I'm not going to be hitting my marks. But certainly if I can be hitting 120 grams of carbs at the early hours of my ride, it really pays off in those later hours. But also when I'm doing shorter, intense workouts, especially anaerobic workouts, I'm going to be fueling and kind of shooting more for that 120 grams an hour limit. So, I mean, and there are athletes who are going way beyond that. And then there's many athletes who work really hard to hit 90 and they never can even get there. But, you know, if you're fueling 40 grams of carbs an hour, increasing that to 60, 70 is going to make a huge difference. So yeah, first thought there. Other thought about fueling those workouts, when I am doing more of an aerobic workout, I'm able to consume a lot more diversity of food. Your primary fuel source is going to be carbohydrate, but you're going to be able to get away, or you may be able to get away with eating some small amount of protein and fats. Some people, they purely won't digest it, and then it's just going to sit in your gut and make you feel terrible. But I've got a pretty robust gut. I can eat just about anything if I'm doing long endurance workouts. So yeah, and what does that look like? I eat a ton of Fig Newtons, some of my favorites. I eat a lot of stroopwafels. They're quite delicious. I generally hit the local bakery. I'm not afraid to eat a loaf of bread with some cheese slid in there. You know, you just kind of have to play around with what's going to work for those longer endurance rides. But as those rides, even those long endurance rides, when I get in the latter hours, my body's not going to be really excited about digesting food. And so I shift more towards pure carbohydrates and really simple ones. And that's when I'm eating mostly blocks. I don't like gels, so I don't eat them, but people love them. So if they work for you, go for them. But yeah, I tend to more towards engineered food the later in those rides. Also, if I'm doing more anaerobic rides, high intensity workouts, my body and most people's bodies are not going to be able to do a great job digesting any fats or proteins. So at that point, I just rely on really simple carbs, and that's when I shift to mostly engineered foods. Also, how do you get that much food in you? It's a lot of food. If you're riding outside, you only have so many pockets. I do a lot of drink mix. This is my favorite flavor that's caffeinated. 250 calories in a scoop. Well, yeah, 2 scoops of that with a serving size. That adds up pretty quick. So that really helps me make sure that I'm hitting all my marks, but I still like eating food. There's a lot of athletes though who just purely put all of their nutrition in their liquids. That works for you. Awesome. I like to eat stuff and I like some diversity. But a note on that caffeine, a lot of engineered foods has caffeine in there, and caffeine is an amazing performance enhancer. You should absolutely use it as a strategic tool because it's totally legal substance and pretty amazing performance data on that. But caffeine can really mess with your sleep, and especially when you're training, sleep is such a priority. And so the half-life of caffeine is about 8 hours. So you really don't want to be consuming caffeine 8 hours before you go to bed. So for most people, that's around 2 o'clock in the afternoon is kind of a hard cutoff. Now, granted, when you're racing and you've got like an evening race, you may decide to take caffeine and just be like, yeah, I'm going to be so amped up, I'm not going to sleep great anyways. But for regular training days, just be mindful of the caffeine that's in your products. I always use or always have on hand a non-caffeinated drink and non-caffeinated stuff. And if I'm going to do a workout, for me, my cutoff is noon just because I'm pretty sensitive to caffeine. So I'm just really mindful about that. And again, when I'm racing, I'll push that noon limit and push it out. But for training, I'm not going to do that. So that's how I fuel my workouts when I'm training, riding, whatnot. The next question is, what do you do before your workout? So if it's been 2-ish hours since you've eaten a meal, you're probably going to need to kind of stock up a little bit on some fuel before you hop on the bike. Again, if I've got more of an aerobic workout, what that snack looks like, it can be kind of anything. I'm still going to have a predominance towards carbohydrates, but I might have a piece of toast with some nut butter on it, or some cookies, or, you know, whatever delicious thing happens to be in the house. Still kind of being mindful about not having a ton of fat and a ton of protein, but I'll have a snack anywhere from like 100 to 200 calories just to kind of get myself ready to go. And I usually do that like as I'm getting ready to ride, so 20 to 30 minutes before I hop on the bike. If I'm going to be doing a high intensity anaerobic workout, that snack trends entirely towards simple carbs. And there I'm going to be switching it from having white toast or like a leftover pancake with a little bit of maple syrup on it. But yeah, something pretty simple carbs, pretty quick burning, so I don't have any issues there. If your workout's going to be in less than 2 hours since you ate a meal, you should probably be a little thoughtful about what that meal is. Again, like going and eating a hamburger and a milkshake and then thinking you're going to get on your bike and do a hard workout an hour later, probably not a great idea. But, you know, if I'm going to eat lunch and then I know in the next like hour I'm going to be on my bike, I'm going to, you know, avoid some of the higher fat foods, but I know I can get away with a pretty diverse meal within 2 hours before I get on a bike. Another thing that a lot of athletes struggle with is if they are first thing in the morning workout folk. And if you are going to get right on the bike as soon as you get up, you still need to put something in your system before you get on the bike. It's going to start priming your metabolism. It gets your body something to burn. Everybody's going to be able to eat something different. But find something to get in you before you get on the bike. Get up, start snacking. And if I have a hard time eating in the morning, or if I'm going to have an anaerobic workout, that first thing in the morning snack is going to look more, again, like a banana, or it's going to look like toast with a little bit of fruit jam on it. Something pretty simple, pretty easy to digest, all carbohydrate. If I have more of an aerobic workout coming up, like steady state intervals or something, I'm going to probably make sure I'm getting something with a little bit more substance in it. And you may have a really robust gut, which I do. And so like, I generally will have like cereal with bananas in it. Not a problem to then eat that and then hop on the bike 30 minutes later, but get something going in your system. And if all else fails, if you can't do anything, like that's when gels are amazing. Take a gel right before you get on the bike. Man, the science of when that starts to hit keeps changing, but I've heard numbers as soon as 8 minutes after you take a gel, it's already like peaking in your system. So get some food in you for those early morning workouts. It'll really pay off. All right. And then after my workout, if my workout has been anaerobic or if it's been more than an hour and a half long, I always have a protein drink, and I really try to get that in within 20 minutes of getting off the bike. The science of that is not super solid, but there is evidence, especially for women, that window for really utilizing protein is really high when you get done with the workout, and it starts diminishing later. And I really want to make sure that I'm not cannibalizing my muscle development, that I'm fueling getting all the benefits of that workout I just did. And I also shoot for anywhere from, I actually aim more for like 30 grams of protein in my recovery drink. There's some science that shows that you may not actually be able to process more than about 20 grams. But there's also some science showing you can process some more. And so I aim on the high side. And for me, it's really easy. I just use a recovery mix. I always doctor them up, and this is like a total treat. Because it's really cold right now, I've been making recovery cocoa. So it's like my recovery mix with some cocoa powder and a little bit of chili powder in there and some salt. I think it's so good, and it's warm. In the summer, I'm always blending things with fruit, maybe like some mint, whatever's looking good for the season. So having a lot of fun with that. So that's kind of my guideline of how I fuel my workouts on a day-to-day basis. I hope that helps. Experiment around. If you don't fuel your workouts, start fueling your workouts and start small. It's totally fine. Don't be daunted by some 350 calories an hour. Like, I gotta get there right away. No, and you may never get there, but it's an aspirational goal, right? But if you can just start consuming 100 calories for every hour you're working out and see if that makes a difference, and then see if you can up that to 150, 200, and keep going, some real magic is gonna happen. And final things that people ask me about all the time is like fasted morning workouts. The literature on those fasted workouts is really not great, especially for athletes and endurance athletes. And for women, oh my gosh, the data on that is even worse. But if that's really your jam, do your homework, know what you're getting into. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Have fun experimenting. Framework for how to feel those workouts. Good luck.